The immigration crisis has gotten out of control, and what you can see is that you only had to look to what was happening to Western Europe a decade ago to understand what would happen through this process being implemented within the United States. Of course, things like this, akin to that of the mass influx of peoples into new lands, this would never correlate perfectly with something akin to, I don't know, the UN's 2030 migration agenda and how it is that we will be flooding in people from poorer places into lands of the West. That would never happen. The fact that you would even assert something like that is quite ridiculous. I can't believe you would even say that non-governmental organizations are working with these massive institutions to assist in ferrying these people across the globe so that they can then pour into the West. How conspiratorial of you. Anyways, what we see now with this mass influx of illegal immigrants, people who do not share the culture of those within the land they are being imported into, well, the crime rate is skyrocketing, specifically that of sexual predation, many of times based on that of, let's say, innocence. We are seeing women and children being those preyed upon the most, which is no surprise when you consider the factors of what we are talking about. Absolutely horrific, but nonetheless, this is what you have consistently seen ramp up in mass, as you have also seen violent attacks being taken by that of illegal immigrants. Most recently, a horrific story coming out of the UK with 3 children being stabbed to death by an illegal immigrant, and I believe this was at a birthday party. Unbelievable. And when you see stories like this, it makes you realize that as time moves on and we consistently see this mass influx of people pouring into these nations, all you will see from the civilian populace of those lands is their immediate turn against immigrants and illegal immigrants. And because of this, what you'll then see is a deeper divide drawn in the ground. This, of course, will most certainly cause something akin to the rally around the flag effect, which will then unite people against people from other lands, which will then tilt individuals against the concept of immigration as a whole. It's going to be a fascinating dynamic as it evolves. So now let's jump in and see what we've got with the insanity of the migrant crisis into both the United States and Western Europe. Starting now with this article from CNN World, diving in with this absolute fucking horror story. Here we see a third girl has died in the UK after one of the worst attacks on children in decades. Here's what to know. Here we see the United Kingdom was left shaken after 3 children were stabbed to death and 8 others were injured in a knife attack in Southport and one of the worst assaults against children in the country in decades. Good God, man. 3 killed, 8 injured. Majority of those injured were near fatally wounded. I'm going to try and get through this without getting upset and angry, but I'm going to fail. Here we see the attack took place at a Taylor Swift themed event at a dance school in the seaside town in northwest England, sparking disbelief over why anyone would target children having fun during the summer holiday. Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the whole country was deeply shocked by the truly awful attack, while King Charles III said he was profoundly shocked by the utterly horrific incident. What happened? Police said Monday 2 girls aged 6 and 7 were killed and 6 of the 9 were injured were in critical condition. Officers said that the following day another child, a 9-year-old girl, had died as a result of her injuries. Okay, just before we go ahead and move on, I just want to throw this out there. What is the appropriate punishment for someone who harms a child, who violates their innocence, or who takes their life, removing their innocence from this plane of existence? I don't know what punishment is appropriate, but death isn't fucking good enough. Period. Point blank. I'm not trying to just, ooh, I can't say that on YouTube. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and move on now. The fact is that when you see something like this, it makes you realize that people like this truly deserve whatever is worse than the most horrific punishment you could possibly imagine. And even then, you have to come to a realization that we as man cannot operate as judge, jury, and executioner. But even then, when seeing something like this, it truly makes you feel, man, we can't let God do all the work. Getting back to it now, we see 2 adults were also critically injured, police said, adding that they suffered injuries because they were bravely trying to protect the children who were being attacked. And my goodness, to those 2 people who were injured so viciously and almost lost their own lives because they were simply trying to protect that of the most innocent, I have nothing but the utmost respect for you, and I truly tip my hat to you in every moment that I possibly can. God bless you, because that is truly a wonderful thing to be someone blessed with the courage to leap into action, to be willing to stand in front of a child, to say, no, you will not harm them any further. You will drive that blade or that bullet into me before I ever allow them to come to more harm. Jumping down, we see who are the victims. Let's go ahead now and jump into that. Police named the girls who died in the attack as Alice De Silva Aguiar, 9, BB King, 6, and 7-year-old Elsie Dot Stancombe. Photographs of the three victims that were shared by their family show Alice wearing a princess-like white dress, while Elsie is pictured smiling into the camera in what appears to be a school uniform. BB is shown sporting two ponytails, looking delighted, while pointing to her t-shirt that shows the pictures of Elphaba and Galinda, the two witches from the Wicked musical. Police also shared a tribute from the family of BB King, who said, "No words can describe the devastation that has hit our family as we try to deal with the loss of our little girl BB." The parents of De Silva Aguilar called the 9-year-old our princess and said, "Keep smiling and dancing like you love to do, our princess. Like we said before to you, you're always our princess and no one would change that." And now you see on your screen these three angels who are sadly no longer with us. On the left, you see Alice, the middle, BB, and on the right, Elsie. Look at their smiles. Look at the light in their eyes and realize that is what was stolen from the world. What we see is children representing nothing more than the purest and most innocent form of untapped potential. And what we see is that this individual stole that not only from their parents, but from the world. And when you see a moment like this occur, it should bring to mind a realization of what matters most. And it's grappling with the facts so you can deal with the nature of reality to understand what could have possibly allowed something like this to unfold. But of course, CNN, the corporate press, and the legacy media, they won't actually do that. They'll sidestep that, tell you that there's an individual who's responsible, and then avoid telling you any of the relevant and pertinent information that could build your realization to understand the world as it is. No. We have to obfuscate the most important pieces of information, like the fact that this person was an illegal immigrant who is completely and utterly removed from the nature of being culturally British. Here we see suspect arrested, but no motive known yet. The police said a 17-year-old minor was arrested at the scene on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. He was taken to the police station and was being interviewed on Tuesday morning, the police said. Maryside Police Chief Constable Serena Kennedy said the suspect was from Banks in Lancashire and was originally from Cardiff in Wales. She said the suspect was armed with a knife when he walked into the school in Southport, but gives no other details on him or his apparent motive other than saying the attack was not being treated as terror-related. Interesting that. No other details on him or his apparent motive, but of course this information already being released to the press, specifically like that of the independent media landscapes within that of the UK, as we have seen police officers openly coming forward and saying who is responsible for this, where he is from, but of course what we see is that doesn't matter to CNN. They'll sidestep it and say, we don't understand any of the actual relevant information besides the fact that this person was a 17-year-old minor and they weren't from the country. It's like, interesting that. Any more information to offer? No? Oh, okay. Now we jump into the rest of this article. Here we see this was the worst mass stabbing against kids in the UK in ages, and it says, what has been the reaction? Well, don't you worry. You don't need CNN to tell you that. I can just show you video footage of it. Footage is wild, but of course the British never pop off as hard as the Irish. Here we see from Vice, asylum hostel torched as anti-immigrant unrest spirals in Ireland, and it's like, wow, in the UK, in Ireland, I wonder what other countries could possibly be having something like this happening. Well, here we see, if we go over to the Daily Mail, they are telling us that things are happening in Germany. Children radicalized in mosques, 11-year-olds with knives, and surging crime rates. The damning verdict of German child refugee charities that say integration has failed. We must stop admitting asylum seekers. And that is a truly damning indictment, that you are an institution that is meant to integrate people, and you are claiming that it is a failed endeavor and is not worth doing, thus you need to stop admitting asylum seekers. That is a devastating blow to the progressive narrative surrounding things like immigration. Jumping in now to the BBC in an article that is also talking about children in relation to this topic. Here we see Channel migrants, 116 children missing from UK hotels. I want you to consider what happened to them. What is it that they're possibly suffering under? Did they lose their lives? Have they been put into trafficking? What happened to these children? This was in October of 2022, and with the immigration crisis only getting worse absolutely everywhere within the Western world, what we can then see would be what? That this number of children missing, well, it's most certainly skyrocketed, because all you would have to do is look to the southern border of the United States and see what's happening with those children in correlation with the cartels to understand exactly that. Now we jump on to the shores of the United States, as we had just mentioned. Here we see Haitian migrant in Massachusetts is charged with raping a teenager. The suspect and the 15-year-old were both living in a hotel that currently serves as migrant shelter. What? Are you fucking serious? And this person is still within the country. And do you know how I know this? Well, my friends, here you can see from the New York Post, Haitian migrant accused of sexually assaulting teen girl in Boston freed on a $500 bail. Look at this. This is insane. This is clown world territory. $500 bail for sexually assaulting a teenager. It's absolutely unreal. Genuinely insane. But if you thought that was bad, I guarantee you the justification that is brought forward by the mindset of many of these people who are of this illegal immigrant classification of individual who are being brought into these Western countries en masse, well, when you hear the description of how it is that they tackle the rationale of the issue of something like, let's say, predation of an innocent woman, it's actually unbelievable that there is a person using this line of rationale, and I don't think that anything could highlight further the nature of the cultural discrepancy and the fact that the line drawn in the sand between these two peoples is truly so vast that the differences, as stated by this German authority that were trying to work on the standards of integration, is truly irreconcilable. Now let's go ahead and jump into that.
Some of them, they're not screaming. It's like they wanted to be raped, you see. She also grabs you, you see, no more
like
crying.
She's enjoying it, you know,
see.
even though she isn't, but it's like she's enjoying it.
Do you think it's right? Do you think it's right to rape?
Yeah, it's wrong. Yeah, it's wrong.
What about the consequences of what you're doing in terms of how that affects the person that's raped?
Yeah, the consequences, we look at that all the time, you know, because it happens, she might scream, you know, people might wake up. A lot of people, especially.
I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about the emotional effect, the physical effect it has on the girl.
Yeah. Sometimes we know that we might rape her and wake up tomorrow with viruses ourselves, like HIV, you know.
What about regretting what you've done to the girl?
I also do regret about it, because if she fell pregnant, what will be that baby's father? Who will be that baby's father?
But what about her personal feelings?
What would you even say to that? I wouldn't know what to say. I would be at a loss for words, much like what we saw with that interviewer, completely perplexed and blown away by the answers he was getting, because in many ways it seemed polar opposite to the standards of what you would have imagined if you were someone who was raised within the moral ethic of the Western world. And because of this understanding, what we can then draw as an extrapolation outward from there would be what? That the cultural divide betwixt these two peoples, it is so vast that it is completely completely and totally irreconcilable, which is why this whole concept of mass influx of immigrants into the West, meanwhile not operating on the standards of assimilation, was nothing more than a felonious trick sold to you by institutions akin to that of the UN, pushing things like the UN 2030 migration agenda. Of course, we've talked about that numerous times on this channel, and if you would like to go check that out, you should look into it because it is well worth your time to understand this topic. I'm going to go ahead and call it there. Thank you for watching. If you got this far, thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Stay lovely, stay great, and most importantly, tell someone you love them. Peace out.